He convinces the Prime Minister of Malaysia to set up a sovereign wealth fund and raise $6.5 billion with Goldman Sachs, and he just goes ahead and steals it.
From 2009 until 2015, Jho would be known for spending lots of cash and throwing insane parties. He was known for crazy things like spending the day in London, but the night in New York. This $178 million Picasso painting, $48 million jet, $250 million yacht, and a see-through grand piano were just some of the items purchased using the billions of dollars that were stolen in one of the biggest financial scandals involving a complex web of offshore shell companies, A-list celebrities, the Middle East, and Wall Street giants like Goldman Sachs. The scandal was masterminded by a Malaysian national named Jho. He financed notable films like The Wolf of Wall Street, Daddy's Home, and Dumb and Dumber 2. He stole so much money that when the real Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, went to visit Jho for the film's launch party, he was so blown away by the wealth he witnessed that he decided to sue Jho for $300 million.
I walked into this party, I must have spent $10 million on the party. I looked at my then wife and said, I promise you this is not going to end well.
Jamie Foxx even tells a story where he and other celebrities like Jonah Hill and Leonardo DiCaprio watched the New Year's countdown twice in the same night, all thanks to Jho Low.
I got a friend, he got some money, and he flew me, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jonah Hill, and some other cats, and we flew to Australia, right? And we did the countdown in Australia. You get like Mike here or you Mike Jamie, get that Mike? So we did the countdown in Australia, then jumped back on a plane, and then did the countdown in Vegas. That's crazy.
Born in 1981 in Georgetown, Malaysia, Jho, commonly known as Jho Low, was born into a well-off family, which allowed him to attend prestigious schools like the Penang International School in Malaysia and the Harrow boarding school in England. While attending Harrow, Jho would make world-class connections with his peers like Riza Aziz, the stepson of Najib Razak, the man who would go on to become the Prime Minister of Malaysia. To further his education, Jho went on to attend the prestigious and coveted Wharton School of Business. While at Wharton, Jho was already managing money for his friends and family, and he would go on to graduate in 2005. Just a year later, in 2006, Jho would broker his first major business deal. He facilitated a multi-million-dollar real estate transaction for a Kuwait bank to buy a luxurious $86 million apartment in Malaysia's capital, Kuala Lumpur. Jho's big break did not come until 2009, however, when Najib Razak became the Prime Minister of Malaysia. When Najib came into power in 2009, he formed a sovereign wealth fund called 1MDB. 1MDB started as the TIA, Terengganu Investment Authority, a state-run development fund formed to boost the Terengganu state's economy through investments in energy, real estate, and hospitality. After assuming power, Najib converted it into a federal fund that would invest in similar ventures, but for the entire country of Malaysia, through sovereign and foreign investments. It was called 1MDB, One Malaysia Development Berhad. The fund contained $1 billion, and it was controlled by Najib, who was the chairman of the board of directors. However, in order to spend the $1 billion, the rest of the 1MDB board would have to approve it. This is where Jho Low comes into play. Jho Low's role at 1MDB had no official title. Jho was acting as some sort of senior advisor who was allowed unrestricted access to 1MDB's operations. With this newfound access, Jho put a deal together that would act as a vehicle to move around the $1 billion that 1MDB controlled. Jho leveraged his connections with a Saudi prince, Turki bin Abdullah, who was the co-founder of the international oil company, PetroSaudi. Jho's idea was to dump funding into a joint venture bank account between 1MDB and PetroSaudi. PetroSaudi would then be able to use the funds to fuel a massive company expansion in Malaysia that would result in big profits for PetroSaudi and the 1MDB fund. Jho rented a 300-foot mega yacht and invited Najib Razak and his wife Rasma Mansour, along with Prince Turki, to vacation in Monaco. While they were on this lavish and luxurious yacht, Jho would end up convincing the Saudi prince and Prime Minister Najib to embark on this massive joint venture scam between 1MDB and PetroSaudi. The deal was that PetroSaudi would contribute $1.5 billion in oil and gas assets as collateral, while one MDB would contribute $1 billion in cash to the partnership. In reality, this deal was only acting as the vehicle that would allow Jho, Najib, and Prince Turki to get their hands on the $1 billion that one MDB controlled. Jho masterminded a scheme to trick the bank and one MDB board members. He created a company named Good Star and made it appear as though Petro-Saudi controlled it. However, in reality, Jho Low had control over Good Star. As part of the scheme, one MDB was supposed to contribute $1 billion to the joint venture. Jho Low arranged for the funds to be split into two accounts. The bank believed that $300 million was going to a joint venture account for one MDB, while $700 million was allocated to another joint venture account for Petro-Saudi. However, instead of going to the intended accounts, the money was transferred to Jho Low's control through Good Star. It worked like this. On paper, Good Star was owned by a company called Smart Power, with Jho Low listed as Smart Power's secretary. However, Smart Power was owned by Jho Low. After receiving the $700 million, Jho Low allegedly used a portion of the funds to pay off his co-conspirators, including Prince Turki and Najib Razak. These payments are commonly referred to as kickbacks or bribes. The police report said that Rasma Mansour purchased 12,000 pieces of jewelry and 423 luxury watches from high-end jewelers like from Rolex, Chopard, and Richard Mille. He did it. Jho Low pulled off the most corrupt and scandalous but somewhat commendable feat. But this was only the beginning. From 2009 to 2010, Jho Low would make a name for himself in the upper echelons of society for spending hundreds of millions of dollars partying and gambling globally with some of the most famous celebrities on the planet, all while he continued to build a massive empire of fraud and lies. To disguise the missing one MDB funds and continue funding his extravagant lifestyle, Jho would need more money, a lot more money. His next scheme would bring in billions and be carried out with the help of the head of Goldman Sachs' Southeast Asia division, Tim Leissner, and his subordinate, Roger Ng. They put together a series of what is now known infamously as the bond deals, which were 3 debt financing deals that poured billions of dollars into the one MDB fund. But again, instead of using the funds for their intended purpose, Jho and his new Goldman Sachs crew would steal billions. Subscribe to see Part 2. Comment down below whether you think Jho Low is a hero or a crook. See you in the next one.